Okay, we're starting. We're running a little bit behind just due to technical difficulty. As I said before, if you're getting a lot of flack, you're over the target, and apparently we must be over the target. So our next speaker is Bob Dean, and I've known Bob for quite a while, being in the same circuit and speaking along some of the same topics, but he's kind of a pioneer in this field and one of the people that made it possible for a lot of us to come forward and broke the ice. And what I like about Bob mostly is he's probably been more of a pain in the ass to the powers that be than I am. So hopefully I can follow in his footsteps. And just some amazing inside information and confirmation of what's really happening on the inside and the things that are hidden, and his expertise and credentials are impeccable. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Robert Dean.
Thank you. You're very kind. I'm having one of the strangest weekends I have ever had in my entire life. I've been damn near everywhere, and I've done damn near everything.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. As I said, I'm having a strange weekend here. I've traveled the world. I've been everywhere. I've done everything. Almost everything. But the last 2 days, I mean, last night, I'm sitting around the fire and there's a young man over to my right who looks normally human. And he's setting fire to marshmallows. And then I hear the drums behind me, and I look over, and a bunch of strange people are dancing to the drums. And I have one of those moments of time, you know, where the hell am I? What planet am I on? You know, what time frame are we? Because when the last 15, 20 years I've been doing a lot of remote viewing, and I've been traveling the universe, as it were. And I sometimes lose track of where I am and who I'm with and who are these strange people that I'm spending some time with here. And as I said, this is a very strange weekend. Drums, people dancing. Am I in New Guinea, for God's sake? Anyhow, I'm having a delightful time. I finally accepted James's invitation to come. And I'm delighted to be here with you. To me, this is God's country. I love the pines, I love the flowers. The weather's delightful. You see, I live in Phoenix. And in the summer, you don't get out in the sun in Phoenix. It's like, what is it? Kipling said about the Indian and the Brits in India. Only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Well, in Phoenix, you gotta be out of your damn mind to go out in the midday sun. When I left 2 days ago to come here, it was 112 degrees. And before the summer's over, I'm told we're probably gonna hit 115, 118. Now that is unreal. That's not helpful. And people say, well, what the hell are you doing in Phoenix when you don't find it comfortable? And that's a long story which I will not get into. But I'm delighted to be here. This is God's country. I've been treated like a king, for heaven's sake. I'm sitting around the fire, and one young man who I think is human brings me a Jack Daniels or a bourbon. Maker's Mark, good stuff. Somebody else hands me a big cigar. That one was very good, the one you gave. Oh, that was first rate, thank you. So I'm enjoying myself thoroughly and delighted to be here. At my age, I'm delighted to be anywhere. Because I really never planned to be here this long. on this trip. But I've been told from the so-called horse's mouth that I'm not finished yet. I've got to do a few more things before I leave. And one of them I'm going to do for the next hour or so in front of you here on this stage. Many of you may know that I've been speaking out loudly, bluntly, sometimes rudely, all over the world, all over Europe, all over Asia, on a subject that's very dear to my heart. And it is simply this, and I think almost all of you know this: we are not alone on this planet, and we have never been alone. We have had an intimate interrelationship with advanced extraterrestrial intelligence from the very beginning of our human history. And that is a hell of a story. I call it the great story of human history, because I have found over the years, as many of you have already concluded, that the human race is a hybrid race. Each and every one of you are hybrids. Your genome has been manipulated and orchestrated by advanced intelligence from the very beginning. And the blunt thing I want to share with you is that genetic manipulation has not ceased. That genetic engineering is still underway. And many of you, I'm sure, are well aware of that. But we're going through some very, very painful and difficult times. The analogy I like to use is that the human species is going through an adolescence. It's a process, and it's painful. Just read the newspapers, watch the TV, which I refuse to do anymore. We are in a transition from adolescence to adulthood, and it's painful. Beyond that, beyond the transition, we are what I call experiencing a transcendent transformation into a new species. We are becoming a new race. And as you remember, each and every one of you, when you went through adolescence, it was painful as hell. It's a wonder I survived. First time I discovered girls, I went out of my mind. I went through a period of adolescence, but luckily, thank God, I survived. But this adolescence, this transition into this new race is a painful thing, and we're right in the middle of it. But thank God, and no pun intended, we do indeed have good friends in high places who are assisting us, encouraging us, nurturing us into this new world that we are all a part of. And we're not there yet. And we're not going to get there for another few years. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not going to tell you when we're going to accomplish this transformation, but it's happening, it's inevitable, and your grandchildren, your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to the stars. And don't you doubt that for a moment. And that's why I like to throw a picture like this on the screen, because it sets the stage for what I like to talk about. This is literally part of the neighborhood you live in. Put another one up there. I think we've got another one. No. I look at that photograph and I think, my God, was I ever that young? That other picture of the stars, you know? Okay. There we are. Oh God, that's beautiful. There we are, another one. You know, the latest estimate, and I've gotten this from pretty established authority, there are 200 billion stars in our galaxy. This is not our galaxy, but it's a neighboring one. And that's what we look at, or what we look like. If you were to get out beyond our galaxy and look back, that's kind of the same picture you would find. And 200 billion stars in our galaxy, and the latest estimate is our 200 billion galaxies in our known universe. And the latest estimate they've come up with now is that there are at least probably 10 million planets with advanced intelligence. Now, if we were looking at our own galaxy, we'd find our little solar system, our little planet, out here on the edge. Like out in the sticks, country, way the hell out. But we've had good friends in high places for a very long time. They manipulated us into a new race. They are continuing to manipulate us into a new species. And I must tell you, at 82 years of age, I have learned to have hope. And that's not easy to say, because for much of my life, I have become cynical. I've been in 3 wars. Oh my God. I told my kid on the phone the other day, I have a son who's a retired Navy captain who spent 30 years in the Navy. I told him on the phone, I said, you know, Eric, I feel like I'm a walking example of that old Chinese curse. And many heard it, you know, may you live in, that's an ancient Chinese curse. But the Chinese in time, so I feel like I'm a walking example. I've served in 3 wars. I've had 3 careers, and I've had 3 marriages. And looking back at my second marriage, make that 4 wars. But I won't go into the details of that. But over the years, I became cynical. I got angry. And as I told Carrie Cassidy one time during an interview, I've had a love-hate relationship with the human race since I was a kid. Really. When I was just a little tyke, I got up and looked around the world and I said, these goddamn people are crazy. These people are out of their minds. Well, the time I came into the world, my dad says I caused the stock market crash in 1929. I was born in March of 29. So I've lived through some pretty hectic times. And over the years in the military, 14 more years with FEMA, I tended to become a little cynical, hard-nosed. I retired as a command sergeant major. We were never famous for being patient. We'd stop over. But over the summer, I have sweetened up a little bit. And I do have hope that we're going to make it. This species, this race is going to survive. And your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going out there. And we're going to take our rightful place in this infinite universe that we belong to and we're a part of. Now, where am I? People have asked me, what do I really think is going on? I've been fortunate enough, or unfortunate enough maybe, to have had access to some pretty top people over the years, some pretty sensitive information. During most of my career, I had a top secret clearance. While I was in Shape NATO in Paris in 1963 to 67, I had a cosmic top secret clearance. And I learned a thing or two over the years. And people say, what the hell is going on? What is really happening? Where are we? Well, guys, I want to quote a few famous quotations to you, if you'll bear with me. When I was in the service, I was trained, among many other things, to be an intelligence analyst. And simply described, an intelligence analyst is a guy who collects data, and he collects facts, and he weighs, and he sifts, and he analyzes. And it's a never-ending process. You weigh, you sift, you analyze, and you try to come up with some conclusions. And over the years, I had learned that one of my great heroes some years back was a gentleman by the name of Charles Fort. And many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with who he was. They've even established a Fortean Society in honor of his name. And Charles Fort said in 1919, bear with me here as I read some of this. Charles said, and I quote, "I think we are property. I should say we belong to something. That once upon a time the earth was a no man's land that other worlds exploited, explored, and colonized here. And they fought among themselves for possession of this planet. Now, briefly, I will refer you to an outstanding book called The Cosmic War by a brilliant man by the name of James P. Farrell. So if you ever get a chance to read anything Farrell has written, it's dynamite. But he says, Fort said, they fought among themselves. Well, apparently there is evidence there was indeed a cosmic war, long, long time ago. But now, Fort said, it's owned by something. Something owns this earth. All others are warned off. I suspect that this has been known perhaps for ages to certain ones upon the earth. A cult or order, members of which function like bellwethers to the rest of us, or as superior slaves or overseers, directing us in accordance with instructions received from someone and somewhere else in our mysterious usefulness. Now, this was in 1919. I look back upon Charles Fort as one of the world's first and one of the world's best intelligence analysts. That's why I admire his work. Here's another little gem. Famous British astrophysicist Fred Hoyle in London in 1971 said this: "Human beings are simply pawns in a game of alien minds that control our every move. They are everywhere, in the sky, under the sea, all over the earth. It is not just an alien intelligence from another planet or another star system, but it is actually from another universe, which I think you refer to as another dimension, which from our very beginning has been controlling all that goes on and happens on this planet." Now, Fred Hoyle said that before he died in 1971. Oh, another little jewel there. Put in your pipe and smoke it, as it were. Now, William Bramley, a man I admire and respect, a writer, wrote the famous Gods of Eden. Boy, he laid it out bluntly. He said human beings appear to be a slave race, languishing on an isolated planet in a small galaxy. As such, the human race was once a source of labor for an extraterrestrial civilization. Now, those of you who read Zechariah Sitchin, you know where old Zechariah came from. God, I miss him. He went home a year ago. He was 90, he was tired. But he laid it out pretty clearly. But here, William Bramley is saying the same thing. We were a source of labor for an extraterrestrial civilization, and it still remains a possession today to keep control over its possession and to maintain Earth as something of a prison planet. That other civilizations have bred never-ending conflict among human beings, have promoted human spiritual decay, and have elected on earth conditions of unremitting physical hardship. This situation has existed for thousands of years and it continues today. Furthermore, it is conceivable that the alleged ownership of earth may have changed hands over the millennia in some way that ownership of corporation can pass among different owners without the public even being aware of it. Now, I've met William Bramley. He's brilliant. If you ever get a chance to read his book, The Gods of Eden, it'll be quite an education for you. So there's a few clues into where I think our condition has been. Now, let's move forward a little bit in time. Werner von Braun, our favorite Nazi, and all of you remember him well, I'm sure. He said this in 1959. I believe that someone or something, well no, I'm sorry, that's the other, that's Ford again. Von Braun said in January 59, we find ourselves faced by powers which are far stronger than we had hitherto assumed, and whose base is at present unknown to us. I cannot say more at this particular time, but we are now engaged in entering into closer contact with these powers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this was published in the Chicago papers in 1959 by Werner von Braun. And what's interesting to me is that this is 5 years after an event occurred at Muroc Air Force Base in California, which is now Edwards. An event transpired in early '54, where President Eisenhower and a group of people that they had assembled, there were 50 or 60 of them, met at Muroc in a hangar to receive and talk to a group of guys from out there. Now, this had all been arranged by naval intelligence. The sources are impeccable. It did happen. I've talked to people who were there. They came, they circled over Muroc, which is now Edwards. 3 big golden discs came and circled over the airbase. Now, these were not thin discs. They were about 50 feet in diameter, but they were thick. They were fat discs. They had a dome below. They circled over the thing, and 3 of them, 2 of them hovered over the runway. 1 came over and landed right in front of the hangar where the Eisenhower and the reception group was waiting for them, and they spent 3 days chatting about us and them. And people say, who the hell were they? And the name comes to mind. They were the Anunnaki. And that is an old Sumerian term, which means nothing more. It's a generic term. It means those who came down from above, those who from heaven to earth came. So Anunnaki does not particularly specify one particular group. The old Sumerian term was a generic term which meant all of them, any of them who were coming down. Well, this group showed up at Muroc in '54, spent 3 days chatting with Ike, caused the old fart to have a heart attack. He literally had a coronary. They were able to bring him through it, thank God. But the shock of the meeting, the shock of what he learned, the shock of what he had seen was almost more than he could bear. Anyhow, for 3 days, these guys are chatting. The Anunnaki, this one particular group. Zechariah said he thought they were probably the ones that the Sumerians referred to, who came from the planet Nibiru, which is another planet in our solar system, which our scientists, by the way, discovered in 1980. Nibiru exists, guys. It's a reality. And it's on its way into the center part of the system. It makes a 3,600-year trip every 3,600 years. It makes a cycle. But apparently the guys that met Ike at Muroc in '54 were from Nibiru. They were that group of Anunnaki. And that's the group that Werner von Braun merely 5 years ago said we are engaging, what is the words he used? We are now engaged in entering into closer contact with these powers. Well, that's an interesting little tidbit. You put that into your little pipe and take a puff or two, and you've got a hell of a story unfolding here. Charles Spork would have loved it. There's another little tidbit here. Dr. Professor Herman Oberth famous German rocket scientist, one of the top people on the planet, a good friend of von Braun, by the way. Oberth said, quoted, published in the New York Times, "We cannot take the credit for our record advancements into certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped from people from other worlds." Now, this is a famous guy, the scientist, Hermann Oberth, who said this in 1980. Now, you see where we're going here? This little plot thickens, this story unfolds. It gets even better. You've known, all of you, from many, many years, I'm sure, that we do indeed have a suspicious government. God, that word, it's too mild. I've said to people that the government you've got is not, the government you think you have is not the government you've got. And, oh, okay, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, let me tell you something here. The famous senator from Hawaii, Daniel Inouye, who is now still in the Senate. Daniel Inouye from Kentucky, or from Hawaii, said at a conference, he said, there exists a shadowy government, apparently with its own Air Force, its own Navy, and its own fundraising mechanisms, and its own ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and obviously free from the law itself. Now, the senator from Hawaii said that in 1987. Shadowy government, black government. Oh, guys, it gets better. Not only do the average American out there have any idea the government he thinks he's got is not the government he's got. Every 4 years we go through this game of having elections. Every 2 years we have elections, for God's sake. Every 4 years we elect a new president. We go through the motions. And we all get excited and we read the papers and everybody's calling each other names. You've got the Republicans in here, you've got the Democrats here, you've got a few little independents shouting from the corridors outside. That's a game. And you play the game. Because they round you guys up every April the 15th and they fleece you. They look upon you as a bunch of sheep. And every 4 years, or every year, my God, every year they take you to the cleaners. They fleece you like the sheep. And they don't care whether you like it or not. They don't care whether you know it or not. They just want you to shut up and hand out all of your taxes. Oh my, I'm sounding cynical again, and I try so hard not to be. But Daniel Inouye in 1987 said that about the shadow government. Okay, where the hell are we? How many of you have been puzzled about what's been going on at NASA? Oh, God. A good friend of mine, Richard Hoagland, has coined this little thing. NASA means never a straight answer. And Richard's pretty accurate about it, you know. NASA is a damn scandal, guys. It really is. Those of you who have enjoyed the Apollo program, those of you who have enjoyed watching the space program over the years, I'm telling you that you better pay attention because the space program that we have had for all these years is on its way out. They're going to have the last shuttle launching in July. No more shuttles. You know, they published a newspaper article not long ago where they said that they did not have the engineering knowledge and know-how to put together the Apollo program again. They couldn't build a Saturn V rocket because they've lost the plans. And now they've announced that we're seeing the last of the shuttle programs, the last one in July. And for those of you who like rockets, well, watch it on the tube, because it's going to be the last. You ain't going to see any more of that. And people say, well, how in the hell are we going to get to the space station? You know, we like to send a guy or two out from time to time. They stay in orbit for what, a year, 6 months or a year or whatever, and then we have to bring them back because weightlessness seems to have a very negative effect on the human body. But how are we going to get some of our guys up to the space station? Well, we're going to pay the Russians to do it. We're going to pay for taxi rides from Russian rockets to take some of our astronauts to the space station. Now, to me, this is absolutely overwhelmingly stupid and absurd that we're doing this, that we're even thinking of doing this. Closing out the shuttle program, the Apollo program is history. They've announced that they don't think they could put a Saturn V together again because they lost the plans somewhere along the way. Now, any halfway intelligent person listens to this bullshit that they publish and think, what in the world is going on here? Well, something strange is going on. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. You have a space program, and you've had it for years, and you've been paying for it for years. And it's called the United States Aerospace Command. And it's made up of Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps. We have an astronaut corps made up of military guys who've been in training, and let me tell you, they are in orbit now. We have space platforms manned by crews in orbit. And this is the other zinger that I picked up from sources I trust. We've been back to the moon already. So when poor old George W. Bush, bless his little heart, said, we're going back to the moon, and we're also going to Mars, and it's going to be lots of fun, just hold your breath, it's going to be exciting. Well, how many of you remember George W. Bush? Well, he's history. I never paid him a lot of attention when he was in office, and I pay less attention now. But he said this, we're going back to the moon, we're going to Mars, we're going to have a space program, yakety yak yak. We're going to pay for it, yakety yak yak. NASA says, now we're not going back to the moon, we can't afford it. They don't have the technology to build the Saturn system again, let alone the new one that they would have to have. We're not going back to Mars. Well, let me tell you guys, we've already been to Mars. And it is a planet that's quite interesting because there are Martians. And they live on the planet, and they've been living on it for a hell of a long time. And they've been kind enough to open their doors and invite us to come and stay in their underground facilities. I have a photograph. I hope we put it in there. I don't know for certain whether we did or not. It was taken by the Russian Phobos. We may not. I have so many slides I wanted to share. We just don't have time. Oh, okay. No, we didn't put it in there. Anyhow, the Soviets took a picture some years back from their space probe, Phobos 2. Now, Phobos is a moon of Mars, which also happens to be an artificial satellite. But the Russians were there, and they took a whole series of photographs, and they took a picture of a city on Mars the size of Chicago, filled with Martians. And then you get all this, is there water on Mars? No, no, no. And now, yes, 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 there's water on Mars. Is there water on the moon? Oh, this is on Mars. Thank you. Thanks for, I don't know what I would do without him. I am computer illiterate, and I'm proud to announce that. But anyhow, I appreciate your assistance. This is a photograph taken by our Mariner 9. This is a NASA picture of a facility on Mars. This is on the equator of Mars, and it's in a rather large facility. When we look at this, I had a pointer here somewhere. You'll have to forgive me, I'm not.
Pants pocket.
Pants pocket?
Pants pocket.
Smart ass. Thank you. Anyhow, this was taken by Mariner 9 some years ago on the equator of Mars, and it's a major facility. It's gigantic. And I like to show this because I say, well, now you're looking at an aerospace facility. This is the parking lot. Here and here, here. This is the admin building here. This is the main terminal here. And Mars does indeed have a space program. And they come and go and they watch us regularly, and we now photograph them and we go back there and we're living on the planet with them now. Our Aerospace Command made up of, and it's not just the United States. The Aerospace Command is made up of American astronauts, but we also have Brits, Australians, Canadians, New Zealanders, all part of the program. Because many of you who've done your homework know that in 1947 we signed a pact with the United Kingdom called the UKUSA Pact. UK-USA. Interesting year, 1947. Strange things were happening in Roswell. We created the National Security Agency. We created the Central Intelligence Agency. We signed a pact with the Brits to share everything, intelligence, you know. Anyhow, the Aerospace Command has Brits, Australians, Canadians, and New Zealanders. And we have Marines, Navy, Air Force, and I think a couple of Army guys are there too. We've been to the moon. We have a small contingent that's on the moon at the moment. We've been to Mars. I don't know whether we're staying at this facility, but we're probably staying in one of the most underground facilities. The one the size of Chicago, God knows how many people. They found water. Oh, what an announcement they made. They think there may be life on Mars. Well, this is NASA again. So you learn not to really pay a hell of a lot of attention to them. Oh my, guys, forgive me for rambling here, but there's so much to cover and I just don't have that much time. So I've shared some things with you here, and a couple of other tidbits I want to lay on you. Wendell Stevens and I put together a conference in Phoenix. Good Lord, what year? 1993. And it was well attended. We had about 600 people there. Wendell spoke, I spoke, but we were able to get a retired aerospace engineer to make a presentation at our conference in Phoenix in '93. He was a Professor David Froning. He was from the Advanced Systems Division of McDonnell Douglas, and he worked with NASA. David said in 1993, he said, "We have had hyperluminal flight capability for the past 30 years. Now, he's a retired aerospace engineer from McDonnell Douglas and NASA. He went public. We have had hyperluminal flight capability for the past 30 years. He said this in '93. Wendell and I grabbed him and said, "What, David, what the hell are you saying? Hyperluminal?" "Yeah. Are you telling us we have faster than light capability 30 years ago?" And this is in '93. He said, "Yeah. We have anti-gravity, we have zero-point energy, and we have hyperluminal flight." Oh my God. Wendell and I were shocked. And we said, "How the hell do we do this?" He said, "We are using a modified field propulsion system, utilizing exotic field tension through matter-antimatter conversion that actually modifies time and space. We can literally create a variable field around the craft that completely insulates the craft and anyone in it from the space-time continuum regulator limits of inertia and gravity, no effect whatsoever on the crew or anything inside the craft. Now, I recently thought that David had passed on and gone home. I subscribe to a little magazine called Atlantis Rising, and I find a little article in there, and so help me, David, Froning is alive and well, living in Australia. He must be about 90 now. But they had a picture of him, and he looked happy as a clam. He looked as healthy as I am, even more so. Had a nice suntan. He's up in years. But he's in Australia. And it came to my mind, if I could get a hold of David Froning, if I could find out where the hell he's living in Australia, I would have a nagging suspicion he's probably somewhere near Pine Gap. Now, Pine Gap happens to be probably the largest national security agency facility on the planet. Smack ass right in the middle of Australia. Interestingly enough, our remote viewers have discovered that there is a major extraterrestrial facility underground in the middle of Australia. Interestingly enough, very close to Pine Gap. Isn't that a coincidence? An alien activity, a facility in Australia underground near Pine Gap. If I could get a hold of David Froning, God bless him, I have a nagging suspicion he might be involved somehow. This is a genius, retired from McDonnell Douglas and NASA, spoke out bluntly in '93. Oh my, hyperluminal flight. You wonder what you've been paying for over the years? You're all aware, forgive me, I want to be cynical for a minute. In 1990, 97, 98, 99, an announcement was made by the Government Accounting Office that the Defense Department had somehow misplaced $1.7 trillion a year for 3 years. Now, put that in your little pipe, take a puff or two. Some of you may have some of those funny cigarettes I referred to yesterday. Either way, 1.7 trillion a year for 3 years running disappeared off the books. It was a published announcement from the General Accounting Office. Now, to you or to me, or any of us in this room, an announcement like that would have had us standing up, raising hell. Where the hell did that damn money go? Damn it, you find out. 1.7 a year, 1.7 trillion a year for 3 years in a row. That's big bucks, guys. That's a lot of money. Do you think that bunch of clowns that calls itself a Congress erupted in outrage and demanded to know where that damn money went? No, it did not. That bunch of clowns that calls itself a Congress and those clowns at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue didn't say peep about that announcement. It just appeared in the newspapers and it's gone. Now, another announcement made by the Secretary of Defense. I think I've tried to re-erase his memory and his name from my memory. Donald. Oh, Eminent Donald, thank you so much. He said this in a public announcement the day before 9/11. Interesting coincidence. Rumsfeld made an announcement, Secretary of Defense. We have misplaced $3 or $4 trillion and we can't figure out where it went. We think it might be an accounting mistake, but we're not sure. Now we all know what happened the next day. This got swept under the rug, it disappeared, like the 1.7 a year for 3 years in a row, just swept under the damn rug. That bunch of clowns and calls itself a Congress. I've met a couple of them, and some of them are really clowns. Anyhow, that money is gone. Well, let me tell you where it went. It went to the Aerospace Command. And we do indeed have ships in orbit, and we have crews out there, and we are back on the moon, and we have a small contingency on Mars. And I don't know whether they're in that facility or whether they're in the underground city, it don't matter. But we do have an aerospace program, and you're paying for it. And according to David Froning, you've had faster than light capability for 40 years. You've had zero-point energy for 40 years. Guys, just think for a moment what the hell is going on. It's like Richard Dolan said in one of his recent books. There is a breakaway society that exists. And as Daniel Inouye said, there is a shadowy government that exists, totally separate from us. Separate funding. Well, we know where the funding is coming from. It's from 1.7 trillion a year for 3 years. The 3 trillion that Rumsfeld referred to the day before 9/11, that's where the money's been going. You have a pretty healthy space program, and that's why we're not going to be spending money paying for the Soviets to shuttle, taxi ride up our astronauts to the space program. It's why the space program under NASA is becoming totally defunct. I mean, they're going out of business. And you're going to be told this in little tiny bits and pieces, little tidbits, the next year, 2 years, maybe 3, that you do indeed have a space program. Oh, wow, we have news for you. We do have space capability, we do have guys in orbit, we have crews. You ever heard the name of a young Brit by the name of Gary McKinnon? Many of you are pretty enlightened and mature. Gary McKinnon is a young Brit who is apparently a computer genius, like this kid sitting here. He hacked into the Defense Department, he hacked into NASA several years ago, and Gary McKinnon came up with some strange stuff. And now NASA, the Defense Department, and the United States government wants to bring poor Gary McKinnon over to this country, put his little ass on trial, and stick him in jail for 50 years. Why? It wasn't merely that he hacked into it, but he found things. He discovered things. And he discovered about the U.S. space program. He found material that he hacked into, which some of it he downloaded. And he gave copies of it to a friend of mine in England. Some of the material he hacked into and downloaded involved a set of orders transferring a space commander from one vessel to another vessel. And you look at the manifests and you don't find any vessels by those names in any of our Navy listings. They're not listed anywhere. But they're a crew aboard, and they've been transferring officers from one vessel to the other. One of the vessels was named the USS Curtis LeMay. We don't have a ship named Curtis LeMay. One of the other vessels was the USS, 2 S's there, USS whatever the hell that means. Roscoe Hillenkotter, retired Navy Admiral, been dead for some years, who was, I think, the first director of Central Intelligence. So we've named a vessel in space the Roscoe Hillenkotter, and we have a set of orders transferring an officer from the Curtis LeMay to the Hillenkotter. And that's why we want to bring this poor kid from the United Kingdom over here and put his ass on trial and send him to jail for 50 years. Well, I don't think they're going to succeed because the new British government is not going to allow it. But you see these little bits and pieces that all together, and why Charles Fort would be delighted as an intelligence analyst, put it all together and come up with a picture. I have another tidbit. Ben Rich, oh, this is a delightful one. Ben Rich retired and passed away not long ago. He retired in 1995. I think Ben died in about 96, 97. Anyhow, during one of his retirement luncheons, Ben Rich, who was the director of Lockheed Martin's famous Skunk Works. I'm sure you all heard about the Skunk Works. It's It's an engineering facility that Lockheed Martin has had for years and years and years. They built the U-2, they built the SR-71, they built the Aurora, which they won't even admit exists. They built all kinds of things. But anyhow, when you go to the Skunk Works for Lockheed Martin, you're getting some of the top aerospace engineers on the planet. Well, Ben Rich was the director until he retired. And upon his retirement, Ben Rich said, now these are little jewels, these are little tidbits that are worth their weight in gold. He says, most of what you have seen on Star Trek is actually commonplace. Classified aerospace science is at least 100 years beyond establishment mainstream science. And then he went in with a little quip, with a smile on his face. He said, we can now take E.T. home. Well, that was about the time that the movie E.T., and most of you, I'm sure, are aware of it, where this little dude waddling around, E.T. wants to go home, E.T. go home. We can now take E.T. home. Well, of course we can. David Froning explained how the hell we will do it. We have hyperluminal flight. We have aerospace engineering that's 100 years beyond what mainstream science thinks it is. Anyhow, as Ben retired, he gave this little departure. We can now take E.T. home. He says, if you've seen it on Star Trek, we have it. We can do it. Now, either David Froning and Ben Rich were out of their cotton-picking minds, they were lunatics, or they were men who were laying out some material for you from their hearts and their minds and telling you the truth. And I can tell you Ben Rich was not a lunatic. David Froning is not a lunatic, and whatever the hell he's doing in Australia, I'd like to know. Because I think he's involved with NSA over there. And he's probably involved with our cousins, our extended family, in that massive facility in Australia, which we have known about for a number of years. You see, I tend to get a little cynical, I tend to get a little angry, I'm very impatient, but I really should get a hold of myself and take my blood pressure medicine and behave myself. Because I've had a couple of friends who would like to see me hang around for at least another year or so. Now, I'm not making any promises, because I have my ticket out. I have a ticket home, but I haven't had it punched yet. Guys, I must tell you that I'm 82 and I'm tired. I feel like Wendell did before he left. Parts of this old carcass here, this container that I happen to be living in at the moment, is wearing out on me. Now, the guys here have been trying their damnedest to make me comfortable, make me feel good. I'm sitting around the fire last night and my bony ass is getting sore because I don't have any cushion back there anymore. And some lovely person here brings me a little cushion when we're sitting around the fire. And another little person over there, not the one who was burning his marshmallows, but another guy, a little chap named Deans, no relative of mine, brings me a glass of whiskey. You know, I turn around, somebody hands me a cigar, like this dude in the front row here. So I'm being spoiled, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. So I think I will hang around at least another year, maybe. You know, I'm only human, and I'm only human on this trip. I've been around like most of you have, like almost all of you have. I've traveled the universe, I've incarnated here, I've been through hundreds of lifetimes on this planet. I've had hundreds of lifetimes on other planets. I'm trying to figure out where would I like to go next. Where? Oh my. Anyhow, I will probably be around for at least another year. I accepted an invitation from Tellinger. He just saw make a lovely presentation. Michael invited me to come to South Africa in November. He's putting on a big conference over there outside of Johannesburg, and I would love very much to go. But I had to tell him, I said, you know, you forgive me, but I'm not being a snob here. But Michael, I cannot travel cabin class on long airline trips anymore. I had a bad experience coming back from Barcelona 2 years ago. I'm sitting in the middle section of a wide-bodied jet. There's an enormously overweight lady on my right. She keeps spilling out of the seat. There's a squalling grab on my left. I have an enlarged prostate and I cannot stand in line to go pee-pee. And this trip from Barcelona back to the States was miserable, you know. And I said, I'm sorry guys, I'd love to come, but I can't travel cabin class anymore. If you could come up with enough funding to get me a business class ticket, I'll be delighted to come. Tellinger says, no sweat. We're going to get you a ticket. We're looking forward to you in Johannesburg in November. And as I jokingly say, if I'm still on the planet, I'll go to Johannesburg. Michael's a delightful guy. I've known him for some time. He's a bit of a genius, by the way, if you haven't figured that out. Now, rolling along as we are here, I've been asked repeatedly by people, who the hell are we talking about with these guys? We call them cousins, we call them extended family, we call them ETs, we call them aliens. God, I hate that word. I hate the word alien because it's not applicable at all. I can't even stand the word UFO anymore because there are no such things. We've known for 60 years what they are. Some of them are ours, some of them are theirs, and some of them are Nazis. Now that's a story I really don't want to get into, but take my word for it. Some of them are Nazis. Because the German Reich, the Third Reich, never disappeared. It still exists. And you know that. And a lot of others in the audience know that. But again, we'd be here for 2 more hours if I got into that. But anyhow, UFOs don't apply, aliens don't apply, ETs don't even apply, for God's sake. Yes, some of our extended family, some of our cousins are from other planets. Some of them literally are from other star systems. And some of them, and the Army has known that since 1976 when I retired, some of them are multidimensional. They're popping through portals into our world. And they don't need to go to any particular place to find a portal. They can open a portal any time they want, any place they want. And they can come in and they come and go all the time. So people say, who in the hell are we really looking at? Who are we talking about? Well, let me give you a little bit here from history. What did our ancestors refer to them as? And some of the people, you know, who study ancient history, and you guys know this, our ancestors were not stupid. There were some pretty bright people. And we're going back 4,000 or 5,000 years. But who did they call? Who did they refer to? What did they call these guys? Well, let me give you just a little brief rundown here. They have referred to them in literature as controllers, protectors, guardians, emissaries, watchers, angels, messengers. Well, angel is another word for messenger. Emissary, guardians, monitors, recorders, and some of the ancient references refer to them as the builders. Now that's what your ancestors called them. I like the term custodian, but I've got another term that I will share with you before I leave. What are they actually doing here? Well, I put this together from some sources which I trust. They're analyzing us, they're surveying us, they're observing us, they're monitoring, guided, closely watched, weighed, evaluated, examined, tested, encouraged, nourished, and nurtured. That's what they're doing here to try to get us through this transition. As I said, the human race is a work in progress. We are an unfinished product. Well, who's doing the job? Well, we've got a group of guys coming and going, and many of them are staying here and have been here for the beginning. We have biologists, we have anthropologists, we have chemists, psychologists, geneticists, linguists, zoologists, oh, that's one of my favorites, oceanographers, meteorologists, and volcanologists. And by the way, the planet is currently quarantined. Not that you didn't know that. We are quarantined. We do not have tourists coming and going. We used to, but we don't have that anymore because the program is reaching some of its final stages. So they've kept the tourists from coming. And that place out there is filled with tourists. Throw me another slide. Oh, try one more. Hey, there's the underground city. Yeah, thank you. I didn't realize I had that in there. That is the Phobos 2 photograph taken by the Soviets a number of years ago. That is a city the size of Chicago under the surface of Mars. There are several thousand people in that city. You can see this, the blocks, the streets, you know, the suburbs over here. This literally is the size of Chicago. This is apparently the same. I know I put a battery in that damn thing. Well, there it is. This is the city limits. But look at these lines. These are streets. These are blocks. There are thousands of people living in that city. That was taken by the Soviets before the Martians sent up a little probe and knocked it out of orbit and went tumbling down. Let's try another one and see what we got. There is a cover for a magazine there, if you can find that. A cover for a book. There it is. I had the pleasure and the honor making friends with a brilliant man. There we go. That one up there. I met Norman Bergeron at a conference some years ago. Now there we are. Okay. He's about 5 feet tall, wears a little bow tie. Go back to the first one again, the ringmakers. Oh, okay. Norman retired from NASA. Oh, about 1982 or 83. Brilliant. He was a genius. He left the program, and he was involved with a NASA program known as Voyager 1. In 1980, NASA, in its brilliance, determined that something strange was going on in the rings of Saturn. It had photographs that were very, very challenging, very, very surprising, very puzzling. So they put Voyager out, and I think that was the one that carried the little golden disc, supposed to go out and carry a message to the stars. Well, on its way out, they decided to send Voyager 1 to the rings of Saturn. And they did. And boy, did what they find blow their minds. They found that sort of things are going on in the rings of Saturn that really just, they didn't know what to do with it. Well, Norman retired and said, well, I think probably they're going to release all of this eventually. They didn't. They didn't release a damn thing, and it pissed Norman off. As I said, he's a delightful little guy. Bow tie, little pink cheeks. He waited a couple of years, and he waited and he waited and he waited, and he kept thinking NASA will eventually release information and show the photographs of what they found in the rings of Saturn. Well, they didn't. So Norman, in his exasperation, decided to write a book and publish some of the photographs. Well, Norman could not get his book published in the United States. A publisher wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So poor Norman had to go off to Scotland, for God's sake, to a little town in Scotland named Aberdeen. And he got his book published in Aberdeen, Scotland, and it became a dynamite book. I got to know Norman, I got to love him and respect him, and we became friends. This picture, one of the pictures taken by Voyager 1 in 1980, found this object here. Now this is one of the rings, but they found this object. Let me tell you why they haven't released this. That object is about the size of our moon. Now our moon has a diameter of 2,160 miles. This thing is the size of our moon, self-luminous, flies all over the damn place, moves around all over through the rings of Saturn, and they never released it. And Norman got exasperated and said, to hell with them, I'm going to release it and I'm going to write my book. Went to Aberdeen, got it published, and this is the book. This book is worth its weight in gold. I kid you not. The last I heard, little extra copies of this were showing up on Amazon for $500 and $600 a pop, if you can find one. They're very rare, because it's filled with photographs. But this object here, 2,160 miles the size of our moon. Can you imagine the technology, the intelligence that has put that together? Can you imagine the intelligence that's aboard that thing? Oh God, let's try another one. The other one of the, no, that's Apollo 13. I'll get to that in a minute. There, that one, yeah. There we go. Ringmakers of Saturn. This is one of the other photographs that I put in my show. This is another gigantic object here that's moving all over the damn place. But Norman in his book did not reference how large that was, but you can kind of figure out when I tell you how large this thing is. This apparently, ladies and gentlemen, is an artificially constructed electromagnetic vehicle that is 2,000 miles long. Now you've got an idea, I think, of why not only NASA, but not only why the Defense Department or any of the rest of them do not want to release information of that nature to you. How do they tell you that there is an intelligence out there around us, all over our solar system, that has the intelligence, the capability to build an electromagnetic vehicle 2,000 miles long? They are convinced that you common folk, you sheep, the ones you fleet, they get fleeced every April the 15th, can't deal with that. It would upset you. It would psychically disturb you. You could not handle that. Well, my answer as an old infantryman is bullshit. Of course you can handle that. It might stir a little bit of, unease among you when you look at our program. We have a shuttle with 7 guys crammed into it. We had the Apollo program with a little shuttle, with a little capsule, with 3 guys crammed into it. And we've got guys out here in our midst and all around us that can build a ship that's 2,000 miles long. In his book, Norman said that they think of it as probably, it's a ring maker. They're making the rings. Because here is one of the rings. And I said, Norman, do you ever stop to think that they may not be making the rings, that they're probably mining the rings? Because the rings of Saturn are predominantly ice, minerals. I mean, they're rich in nutrients. Every damn thing you could possibly need or want, I'm sure, is available in those rings. And these guys are mining the damn things. Which makes good common sense, You need water, you go to the rings of Saturn and you fill your tanks. You need a little bit of minerals of one kind or another, you go to the rings of Saturn and you fill your tanks. The space is filled with richness and nutrients and life. That's why I get so damn cynical. Every time I go to a filling station, I want to start a fight. I fill my tank and I get angry because I know I'm being conned, I know I'm being had. They're screwing me and I don't like it. And you guys will do the same damn thing. Anyhow, where am I? I've told you a little bit about who they are, what our ancestors referred to them, what they're doing here, why they're trying to help, and the fact that they've been giving us a lot of help. Where are we going from here? What's next? Well, I can tell you that, and I'm not a prophet, I refuse to prophesy, but I will tell you that in the next year or so, you're going to get some little amazing gems from the government and from NASA, not only about, yes, there's water on Mars, there's water on the moon. They'll probably tell you our space program is alive and well. They'll probably eventually tell you, within the next 5 years perhaps, that we've got guys on the moon, we've got guys on Mars, we've got guys aboard platforms in space. We transfer officers from one command to another out there. And then you can understand why it doesn't matter that NASA is becoming history. It doesn't matter that we're going to have to pay the Russians at least for another year or two to taxi some of our guys to the space station. And then let me tell you something else. When you look at something like this, and you look at the other one, the size of our moon, and you look at our space station, and you think, isn't that pathetic? Isn't that ridiculous? My God. Well, they don't want you to know that, you see, because if you know that that exists, you look at our space station, you look at our shuttle, you look at our little capsules, you accept this bullshit about they can't build the Titan or they can't build the Saturn V again because they lost the plans. Oh, God. Let's try another picture. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? It makes me homesick to see that. I really do feel a tug of homesickness. People have asked me, where am I going after I leave here? And I say this with a little bit of a tinge of humor, but it is not merely humorous. I have spotted a little planet in another galaxy that I've been to. And I like it. Looks a lot like what I've been seeing here for the last couple of days. It looks to me like Switzerland in the summertime. And that's where I'm going when I leave here. Now, I may come back here eventually sometime, if I'm told to or encouraged to, I might. Because I've kind of developed a warmth and affection for you humans. You really are a strange group, you know. You are unique. If only you human beings grasp for one moment how rare and special and unique you are. You have a genome that is a treasure in the stars. Your genome is made up of a combination of at least 6 or 8, maybe a dozen different life forms from other places. You're not just one or two. You don't have ancestors from one star or another planet or wherever. In your genome, you have material from a dozen different advanced extraterrestrial intelligences. That's why you are so unique. That's why you're so special. And good God, if you could grasp for a moment how special and rare you are, you'd feel much better about yourselves. You'd realize how valuable you are to them, to yourselves. You understand why they treasure us so much. Now, I'm rambling again. Let's try another photograph and see what we got. God, I love that. Every one of those little tiny dots is a star. Probably many of those larger dots are probably galaxies. Space is infinite. You don't even find a proper definition of that word in the dictionary. Humans don't really grasp what the word infinite means. means forever, means everlasting, infinite, beautiful. You're going to have to forgive me a moment. I'm getting a little hoarse here.
$2,160 miles.
A little thing I'll throw a gem out to play with. Our moon is 2,160 miles in diameter, 2160. The latest estimates from satellite mapping and all have found that the Earth has a circumference of 21,600 miles. Isn't that an interesting coincidence? 21,600. The moon is 2,160. Each astrological age is 2,160 years. Aren't those interesting coincidences? Does that give you an interesting insight? Excuse me. See if you can find the planet, picture of the planet Earth. There we go. Yeah, I want to touch upon this briefly. Isn't she gorgeous? Let me tell you how gorgeous she is. Our ancestors considered her to be alive. They called her a goddess. They named her Gaia. And our ancestors were not stupid. That's Gaia. She's alive. She has a respiratory system, she has a circulatory system, and she has a heart. And she loves us. And we damn well better start loving her better and more. Because we are part of, well, let me get back to where I wanted to start. They, and I've gotten this reputably from very high authority, they look upon her as probably the richest and the ripest zoological garden in this quadrant of the galaxy. And when I was being questioned and questioning them, I said, quadrant? Yes. And I said, you mean the galaxy is divided into 4 parts? And they said, yes. That is the most rich and ripe zoological garden in this quadrant of the galaxy. And another friend of mine, a retired Air Force colonel, said, are you trying to tell me I live in a damn zoo? And I said, you sure as hell do. Now they look upon the life on this planet as literally infinite in its variety. The flora and the fauna on this beautiful planet, to them, is considered a rich, rich treasure. And then, of course, it leads you to the fact that among the flora and among the fauna, good God, we're part of the fauna. And they look upon us as a rich treasure. They look upon our genome as incredibly rich and unique. But you think about that. And most of you are way ahead of me on this, or you wouldn't be here. A zoological garden. And that's why they're here, and that's one of the reasons why they treasure this, and that's one of the reasons why they are trying so hard to get us through this transition from our adolescence into adulthood. Because we have gotten to a point where we are really screwing up the environment of this beautiful lady. We're pouring crap into the rivers and lakes and the oceans. Life forms are disappearing. We're playing hell with the fauna and the flora on this planet. We've been dumping crap into the oceans now for hundreds of years, but it's gotten worse in the last 20 or 30 years. We're killing off life forms. And they've decided that we can't do that anymore. We're going to have to stop that garbage and straighten up and fly right, if you pardon the term. So that's why they're here. That's why we're a part of this program. That's why this transition is so damn painful. But I will tell you, this program is going to succeed. And we're going to succeed with it. And when this is all over, at another time and another place in eternity, for those of you who may want to come back here again, because most of you have been coming and going here and other places for eons of time. You come back, I think you might find that according to the old Hindus, the new Yuga is going to be a golden age. The old Kali Yuga is ending. And the new Yuga is coming in, and it's a golden age. And another point which I like to stress, those of you who know and study astrology, you know that there are 12 signs. Now, astrology is a rich and ancient science, and it's very accurate. And you can't get most mainstream scientists to even talk to you about it. But the astrological signs and the symbols and 12 signs, it's all part of a program, it's part of a plan. We're looking at the end of the Piscean age. The great year is coming to a close. And people say, what the hell do you mean, the great year? Well, the ancients knew pretty damn accurately. You have 12 different signs. Each one is 2,160 years long. You put those 12 signs together, you come up with 25,920. That, people, is a great year. And this great year is ending. It's coming to a close. This Piscean age is ending. I was born under the sign of Pisces. Yeshua from Galilee was born under the sign of Pisces. The symbol for most of his life was a fish. So you've got a whole bunch of things happening at once. You have the end of the Piscean age, you have the end of the 26,000-year cycle, the end of the great year. The solar system is moving into a place where it hasn't been for at least, God knows, 26,000 years perhaps, where we're receiving radiation from the galaxy that we can't even figure out what the hell it is. Our scientists, our solar experts have been discovering particles coming from the sun that they don't even know what they are. You know, they think they're so smart. They've had this listing, and this particle and that particle. But they've got stuff now they don't even know what the hell it is. And it's coming from the sun. And it's changing the fauna on the planet. Ooh, whoop-de-doo. What a big surprise. You're part of the fauna, and you're changing. You guys are changing. You guys are becoming a new species. I look at you and I have such hope and I have such encouragement because, as strange as some of you are, I was dancing around the drums here last night. I've learned to come to love you because I do appreciate the human specialty, the human species. You guys are unique. If you only knew how rare you are. Let's try another photograph, see what we got. Well, there we are. That's Apollo 13. I have to talk about that. I was speaking in Tokyo some years back. I was honored to be on Nippon television in Tokyo. And while I was there, I got to meet a couple of members of the Japanese Space Agency. And they were kind enough to give me a set of photographs, which I'd never seen before. NASA photographs. And I said, well, how the hell did you guys get these? And they said, well, we had a contract with NASA from the very beginning of the entire Apollo program, and we offered money to buy a copy of every picture Apollo took during the entire series. And we bought it, they shipped it, we've got it, and we're going to share it. And I found that amusing because when I was in Barcelona 2 years ago, we were celebrating the 40th year anniversary of landing on the moon. And I told the Spaniards, you know, you forgive me, but I don't celebrate very much because 2 months before that, NASA made an announcement that they had inadvertently and mistakenly erased 40 rolls of film from the Apollo program. Now this was published in newspapers, guys. They admitted and published in newspapers that oh my God, we're so sorry, but inadvertently and mistakenly we erased 40 rolls of film. And what were those rolls of film? Well, the stuff they didn't want you to see. Structures on the moon, structures on Mars. Well, you're looking at an Apollo 13 photograph taken by them on their way to the moon. And as you all remember, excuse me, I gotta get a little more bourbon here. I said that once at a conference, and the next thing I know, some little guy shows up, hands me a glass of bourbon, right in the middle of my presentation. Anyhow, I'm in Tokyo. I've been on Nippon television all over the place. The Japanese are delightful people. And this couple of guys show up and handed a little envelope filled with pictures that we thought you might like to have these. And I said, well, thank you so much. What the hell are they? And I began to go through them, and I found this photograph taken by Apollo 13. Now, you remember that's the one that didn't make it to the moon? They had an accident on the way. A little oxygen tank or something exploded. And they screwed up the whole thing, and they barely made it home. They went around the moon, and they were pretty bright kids aboard this thing. I can't remember their names. But they made it back. And they've been taking pictures all the way. Well, here they are crammed into this little capsule on the way to the moon, and they're up at the window of this little thing, snapping pictures. Well, apparently there were guys outside snapping pictures of them. But along their way to the moon, this is one of the pictures they took. Here's the moon. Here is a large disc-shaped object with a dome. Here's another one. Oh, but here, what do we got coming in here on the right? This thing. This is the positive, and the other one is the negative. There we are. This baby is 5 miles long. 5 miles. Now, I find that kind of amusing because I had over the years of my kid being a career naval officer. He spent a lot of his career in the Pentagon, but he spent a lot of it aboard aircraft carriers. I've been honored to be on several of those Nimitz-class carriers. As you know, they're nuclear powered. They only have to get refueled once about every 18 years. They're 1,000 feet long, nuclear powered, and they have a ship's complement of over 5,000 men. Now, if that shocks you as it did me, 5,000 men and a crew on one ship. And as I said, I was on a couple of the Nimitz-class carriers with my kid. Took a couple of cruises on them. Was impressed, overwhelmed with what I was seeing. If you ever saw a Nimitz carrier in operation, it is mind-boggling of how our kids are doing that sort of thing. But the point I'm getting at here, 5 miles long, can you imagine what's going on that vessel? What the ship's complement might be on that one? Go back to that negative again, where you get a better picture of it. Yeah, here we are. Look at the shape of that thing. And understand that baby is 5 miles. What could be on there? I mean, I jokingly say, you know, there could be bowling alleys, restaurants, movies. These, I think, are a couple of large discs, vessels of their own, and probably have come aboard from from a hangar deck along this thing somewhere. You don't even know where the command portion of this thing is. It could be here, it could be over here. But can you imagine what's going on that vessel? It's 5 miles long, and what a complement of crew members it might have, and what their life might be like. And of course, I've conjectured over the years that one of their most entertaining pastimes is watching human television. Because I used to do that. I would, my perversity, my cynic nature. I would watch television and I would turn the volume down or turn it off. And I would watch Dancing with the Stars with no sound. Now try that sometime and you'll find it tremendously amusing. Because here these monkeys are up there doing their thing, you've ever seen any of it. No music, turn it off, no volume. And I've been told that these guys, one of their finest forms of entertainment is watching human television. They think it's hilarious. Well, bless their heart, they probably need all the entertainment they can get. Thank you. Inside of Mount Hayes in Alaska, they have found that there is this another underground facility in the middle of Australia, adjacent to and right near Pine Gap. They have found this other alien facility, of all places, underground in Zimbabwe. And I have to talk about that with Michael because there's a coincidence there. Zimbabwe, the Anunnaki, how long they've been there. There is another major alien facility, and I hate that word again, excuse me, but ET, whatever you wish to call it, inside of Mount Perdido in the Pyrenees. And when I told the Spaniards that, I said, look, don't plan to go up there and start traipsing around on Mount Perdido because some strange things have happened over the years. People have tended to disappear when they would go up on Mount Perdido. But where was I? Getting back to, in terms of entertainment, the facility underground in Australia has been determined by our top remote viewers as a rest and relaxation facility, an R&R facility for them. Now, for those of you who military, R&R means rest and relaxation. They've got an underground facility in the middle of Australia for themselves that's rest and relaxation. And my point is, they're aboard this ship and they're coming and going here and they're all over the damn place and you're dealing with human beings. You need rest and relaxation as often as you can get it. So I don't mind them, having a facility there for themselves. I would love to get in it myself and get a little of that rest and relaxation that they enjoy, I'm sure. I've been told that I'm running out of time. And to be frank with you, I really haven't finished. I ramble a lot. This subject has been overwhelming for me for most of my last 30 or 40 years. I can't leave it, I can't walk away from it, I can't leave it alone. It's the greatest story in human history, it's the greatest story of human history, and the people out there have a right to know. They deserve to be told the truth. And they're not getting the truth. They're being conned and scammed and robbed, and that is going to come to an end. We've got good friends in high places, and I have the hope that not only is the species going to make this transition, we are going to go through a transcendent transformation into a new race, and your grandchildren and great-grandchildren are literally going to the stars. And know that, and also know this, that you do have good friends in high places. And you've always had good friends in high places. I would love to talk to you about a hypnotic regression I had years ago where I found a life that I had lived in Galilee 2,000 years ago. Where I got to know one of them. The one you heard about and read about, Yeshua from Galilee. He was part of the program. He said it again and again and again while he was here. He said, there are things I could tell you that you could not bear. And he said, you are like the gods. What I do, you can do, and even more. And I would tend to miss him, but I know he's alive and well. And I've had a few friends who said, when is he coming back? And I said, he has never left. Now, in conclusion, since I'm running out of time, and you guys probably want to grab a bite to eat, I'd like to close some of my presentations with a quote from Leo Tolstoy, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite poets, writers, novelists. Leo Tolstoy said that there is something in the human spirit that will survive and prevail. He said there is a tiny and brilliant light burning in the heart of man that will not go out, no matter how dark the world becomes. And that spark of light that he is referring to is the human soul, that spark of divinity that rests within each and every one of you. You have that spark of divinity within you. And in closing, I want to say, I want to thank you all very much. God bless you. As I said in Madrid, Barcelona, vaya con Dios. Good night.
So we have about an hour and 15 minutes for lunch. Lunch is ready.